We don't spend a lot of time on this. It's a massive series price, but still worth previewing. The Philadelphia 76ers taking on the Brooklyn Nets. I actually think there's a lot of – so I'm in the process of rewatching some of these games now. Yeah. The current iterations of these rosters, there's only one game to watch. But there are some intricate matchups for this series overall, Kelly. So we'll just start with this. What is the case to be made here for Brooklyn? And the way you make it is not betting them to win it outright, but as we talked about with some of these other series, over games in terms of the series, plus 2.5, plus 1.5. Is there any angle there that you would look at for the Brooklyn Nets here in this series?
Yeah, I think there is, and it has absolutely nothing to do with any futures bets you just rolled out. I think it is a game-by-game situation. I think that you could see let's see, this starts in Philadelphia, right? You get 2 76ers blowouts or something like that, and then the market has over-adjusted basically for what we see of Game 3 back in Brooklyn, and then you can get a nice price on Brooklyn back home, something like that. That's the only way I can make a case for Brooklyn, is I will take this game by game and maybe get a nice number on them at some point at home and actually make a bet.
Yeah, you sparked my memory, and I have this somewhere. I always usually save it for after the second games of these series, but it's my favorite trend that actually does not work over the last 4 seasons, which is team down 2-0 going back home because everybody freaks out. That's first quarter, first half.
Right.
You've actually been extremely in the red over the last 4 seasons if you've been doing it, but you still see it pimped out there every time. So I thought – so, look, I think this is a series in which Philadelphia should take – with some ease.
Yes.
I even think at minus 160 under on 5.5 for the total games played is something to look at there, because this should be a series in which they win in 4 and or 5 games. And keep in mind that Philly wants to win this in 4 or 5 games. James Harden's not fully healthy. Mm-hmm. He's got a sore Achilles that he's been dealing with for a while now. And the more time that Philly can get away and get off and get ready for their next round series, which is going to be massive and which you would assume is going to be against the Boston Celtics, like, that's going to be a pretty big deal for Philly to get some extra time off. So the way I wanted to approach this was, okay, on a game-to-game basis, to your point, rewatching what Brooklyn did with this matchup, they're sending a lot of doubles at Joel Embiid.
Yep.
And looking at Joel Embiid in terms of his assist props on a game-to-game basis throughout this series is going to be something that I think is very much worth monitoring, because there are a lot of posts and reposts kicking it back out to open shooters, a lot of doubles and skip passes from Embiid to open shooters. I think that is something you're going to look at, because look at the center rotation for Brooklyn. It's Nick Claxton. It's Day'Ron Sharpe. You're giving up a lot of inches and a lot of size to Joel Embiid, and that's the only thing they have to really throw at him.
I mean, you're going to be able to put Nick Claxton on him occasionally in one-on-one scenarios, but I mean, that's the tail of the tape thing, right? Where it's like, hey, their heights look about the same, JVT. Oh wait, dude, one guy's 100 pounds heavier than the other.
If you go back and watch that game that I'm talking about on February 11th, like I think it's the first or second possession, Embiid gets the ball on the elbow and he's like, oh, it's Claxton, and rips right through, gets a free throw, like immediately just gets to the free throw line. It's such a tough matchup. For Claxton,
so I'm with you, especially with the rest of the bigs that they have. You're going to see a lot of double teams thrown out, and then it's. I mean, as long as the Sixers make their shots, right, and so it comes down to the Tobias Harrises and Tyrese Maxeys and all that. They got to make their shots. They're going to get their looks. I'm with you. I think this is a pretty quick series that we see here, and going to start preparing for that next round pretty quickly for Philadelphia. I'm with you, though. They would rather get it done quicker rather than later. Let those guys rest up a bit. I think you threw out Harden. Embiid's been mentioning lingering injury issues since before the All-Star break. I think it's never a bad thing to get him a little rest here, especially since they probably played him more than they even needed to down the stretch, because he's chasing MVP, let's be honest.
The last player angle here before we get to the big Eastern Conference series that I'm really excited for, Mikal Bridges has become like the guy for Brooklyn since he has been traded. His usage rate went from 18.8% with Phoenix earlier this year to 28.8%. He's averaging 26.1 points on, I've got 18.6 field goal attempts per game. And this might sound counterintuitive given how much more he has the ball and how much more he's scoring. But actually looking to bet Mikal Bridges props under, on points.
I agree.
Because this is going to be the first time where Bridges is the focal point of a defensive game plan. And I think it's a really big difference when you're talking about, hey, regular season, we're just going to give you a lot more usage and a lot more shot attempts, and he's making the most of it. But when you're the guy and teams are scheming to take you out of games, that's a really big difference that I'm not sure Mikal Bridges is going to be able to handle on a night-to-night basis when it comes to his offensive performance.
Yeah, I will, and I'm glad you brought that up because I wasn't going to necessarily focus in on him on unders, but I think it's look elsewhere for overs on other guys.
Yep.
And as I just kind of pulled up some of these game logs and stuff for some of these guys, maybe the under on Mikal Bridges is the way to go, and you've got it nailed down. But I think Spencer Dinwiddie and Cameron Johnson are two guys you can look at to go over on points. It's just the let's play it through. The 76ers are going to try to take the ball out of the best player's hand on Brooklyn. That has been Mikal Bridges since that trade has occurred. So who are the other guys that can score on this team? Those are the first two guys you're going to look at is Dinwiddie and Cameron Johnson. The one I think I'll point out look for maybe some value early on is Dinwiddie. His last games were not good.
No.
2 for 11 from the field, 1 for 10 from the field, 13 for 24, 5 for 13, 3 for 9, 8 for 11, 0 for 11. My point is he's still getting shots up, though, and that's the biggest thing to handicap when you're handicapping these point props. And what you're going to see, because he hasn't scored a ton, is that point prop will be maybe a little lower than it should be in a matchup like this. That's maybe one I'll look to play over on here early.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.